Hello, my name is Omar Rapisad. It is 5 p.m., May 9th, 2020. So I'm going to, I haven't done one of these videos in a few days, so I thought I would make one today because this targeting is ongoing and there is a lot of new developments going on with, with the police force and the corruption and the abuse of power all over the world. It's a global issue. And I had to do this because there are some videos that is being posted that is showing repeated abuse, repeated unwarranted violence against people by the police all over the world. Not only causing deaths outright, but, and of course, death is the ultimate result of the violence, but a lot of psychological harm is being done as well. You know, people seeing the cops pushing that old man. Let's assume he was an agent provocateur. Even so, it's not warranted to push him down and leave him bleeding. If you did push and he did fall, try to get him out of the way, and he fell and got injured to the point where he could die, you just don't leave him there to die. Even in war zones, at least from what I read, soldiers are taught to not cross certain lines. There are rules of engagement, even in war zones, that that thrives to keep some semblance of humanity. Because it's given when you're in war, at least in the old version of war, that I'm saying the old version because now we're in a whole different set of parameters in which we're engaging in war. And a lot of that has to do with the new technologies that we have. But I mean, in the rules of engagement that I read about, having not been in a war zone and I'm not a soldier, obviously, there was rules that you had to go by. And even prisoners of even prisoners of war are treated with a certain amount of respect. So when I see these videos that's surfacing where cops, not soldiers, are perpetrating this violence, this unwarranted violence against civilians who are protesting peacefully. If people are being violent and you use violence against them in a warranted way, in a reasonable way, then that's considered to be warranted. But when you overuse the force, then you wonder where it's coming from. I mean, after all, it's not personal, right? The policeman who's pushing the protester does not know who the protester is. So where is that need for violence is coming from? Where is that need to show that power, that force against civilians? Where is it coming from? So I was made a target by lies told by the people in this building, some people in the building, I should say, who wanted to traffic under the guise of the flag, taking advantage of the 9/11 new laws, just like they're going to have new laws for COVID-19. and falsely flagging people under that law because you're brown skin, and taking advantage of the cover that the flag gives, and traffic people under that cover. So I was flagged, made a target, and violence, because I'm a target, this violence that I see that that's being used against the protesters were perpetrated against me. So I was viewed as the enemy, because that's what the protesters were. They are, the people who protest are targets. You're not supposed, the idea is you're not supposed to push back against the state. That's where that thinking is coming from, to answer my own question. There is a thinking in certain groups of people in the government that you're not supposed to push back against the government, but it's a democratic right to protest something that the government that we voted in is doing. That's our right. So there's a faction in the dark government that is pushing back, saying, no, you're not supposed to do this. Even though the law allows you to, we're not going to let you do it. So we're gonna use this excessive force to show who's the boss, basically, who's the master. So in my case, I was flagged, and from what I gather from the harassment that comes my way, 2 Muslim people were subcontracting, and these contractors have to be close to you. So these 2 Muslim families were living next door to me, one next door, the other one opposite the corridor. And they were working with a resident who was working with the cops, and who were telling the cops that I'm coming in late. Of course, brown skin. And after 9/11, of course, I became a terrorist. I was coming in late because I was working full time and going to university, taking night courses. So I'd come in at 12:30 at night, because it took me 2 hours to get from downtown to home. So it was fairly safe because I was in the subway. I was on campus, and this was 25 years ago. So it's not as today. Everybody's a terrorist. It was fairly safe. I was in campus, I was in subway. Then I got into my car that was parked in a lit area in another train station. So, and then I drove right underground. But these traffickers who were in the building flagged me. And there are corrupted cops who were working with the traffickers to traffic. So they flagged, and under the flag, the outsourced monitoring, and under the outsourced monitoring, the surveillance inside of your home, and then added technology to remotely rape and torture. So I had to do this because when I look at these videos, and there's a lot of them, they bring back memories of neighbors lying, or people calling and lying, and the cops showing up. And it was arranged by the police informant because I'm a target. It's all fixed. I was out, so there was no emergency. I was ambushed. They waited for me. I came in with a girlfriend who I had lunch with. And as soon as I walked into the door and I closed the door, knock, knock, I opened the door and stepped out into the corridor because my friend was inside. I was surprised to see a cop there. Tall, 6 feet, 2 white cops, male. We're going to take you to the hospital. So I said, why? Nicely, because I had a friend. I was in a good mood. I just came in from having lunch. Was not upset at all. Was in a really good mood. Didn't answer. So I had socks on. I had slacks and a top and socks. So he didn't answer. I think I asked a second time, so what's the problem? And he simply said, you understand you're not under arrest. We're going to take you to the hospital. At which point, I turned to put my shoes on, to get my shoes. I was in the corridor, so I turned towards the door. And out came his hands, held my hand, pulled both my hands behind my back. Now, first he held my hand, both arms, lifted me off the floor, slammed me against the wall. Now, a lot of kids grow up being hit a lot. I was not one of those children. And I've never been married to be subjected to any sort of spousal abuse, if that ever happened. So never in my life did anyone in my life. I mean, I got disciplined a few times by my parents, and a couple of times with whips, and maybe I think my father used a little belt he had a couple of times, and I could only remember getting hit maybe 5 times in my entire life. By my parents. I was never really hit. Even yelled at a lot. So this, the level of violence that was used to lift me off the floor and slam me against the wall. I'm 4'11". They were 6 feet tall, burly, white, just came from, I think, Fallujah, one of them, fighting the Muslim, whatever, out there. And of course, I'm brown skin. He slammed me against the wall. And at that point, of course, I was in tears, holding back tears, and pulled my hands roughly behind my back after slamming me against the wall, and cuffed me behind my back. Then they both lifted me, one on each side, underneath my arm, lifted me off the floor, taking me down the elevator. Now, my friend was inside. I think she was petrified. And I think she got on the phone to call my brother, who was alive at the time. And so now I have no shoes on. So I was not screaming. After he slammed me against the wall, I couldn't scream. I was in shock. Could not scream, even if I wanted to. But I kept almost whimpering, saying, I need my shoes on. I got to put my shoes on. I need my shoes. I need my shoes. I kept repeating it. I can't go without my shoes. I need my shoes. How am I going to walk outside without my shoes? In complete shock. So one of the officers relented and came back. They were almost at the elevator at that point, and came back, and my friend helped me with my shoes. I couldn't put it on. I slipped it on as a slipper. And at which point, the building superintendent, whose name is Gord, just happened to come up the elevator, walking in. And he locked the door that my friend left, the officer. My friend was on the phone talking to my brother, telling him what happened. The officer took the phone off her hand and asked my brother, is she acting strange? And afterwards, my brother told me, he replied, no, she was normal the last time I saw her. And he put the phone down. He hung up on my brother, and he told my friend to go home. And the building superintendent board locked the door, and they took me away. In the car, because I was in shock, I asked for water, no water. Took me to the hospital, waited 45 minutes for the nurse to be signed in. Again, I asked for water a couple of times, no water. I never got the water. And from that day on, I've never experienced that level of violence. Before that, I've never experienced that level of violence towards me. And after that, I've never experienced that level of violence. It was a complete and utter shock. No one in my life ever slapped me on my face. I got hit on the butt by my mother with her hand. Not very hard either. Well, actually, no, I am sorry. I shouldn't say, it's not my mother. It was it was somebody else. I'm not going to call their names. My mother really never really hit. I could remember. I can't remember getting hit by my mother. So my point is, I didn't come from the background where physical violence towards me was something that was part of my reality. I was made to feel fearful as a deterrent, but physical violence was not used as the deterrent. It was the fear of the physical violence that was used as a deterrent. So to be slammed against a wall, and even so, the violence, when I say violence from the parents, was just, maybe a few whips or a few lashes with a belt by my father, not my mother. On the legs and on the butt, not even on the back or the arms. Never experienced that kind of violence, and I've never since. So the impact on the children when they see this, a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, that, when you start getting your memory, you're retaining your memory, and you experience this kind of violence against your parents by a policeman, it's devastating. It forms the basis of the way you would feel towards a policeman for the rest of your life. Because from that day on, when that policeman slammed me against the wall, every time I see a uniform, I feel the way I felt when I got slammed against the wall. And then after that, they came and took me away and falsely charged me. And I almost died in custody. In a 22-hour period, I passed out twice. So this is the level of abuse, police abuse, that I face personally. So when I look at it on those videos, it resonates to my very soul, what these people are feeling. Apparently, it's not only, obviously, not the Blacks, right? It's not perpetrated against the Blacks. It's the white guy who they hit, and he fell and they left dying. So the need for power, the need to dominate, the need to show who's the boss against civilian population who's exercising their democratic right to protest. Ultimately, it's a crime of the state. The state is responsible, has to be held responsible. So, speaking of crime of the state, I'm being tracked in my home. And so I slept on this detector last night, and the backlight is giving me some problems. So it's not going to be easy to see that number here. The display is giving me problems, and it went again. Okay. So maybe I'll use another detector next time. I'll buy another detector. So see that number there? There's a lot of electricity in my body. And the RF as well is quite high. So I'm being scanned on my chest. The RF is quite high on my chest. So I'm getting palpitations all day. I got palpitations all night. And my skin was burning all night as well. So maybe I'll give you another view of that. So here is my the detector here. Excuse the movement. So here is the numbers a little bit more visible. See this? So my skin is burning. Excuse the movement of my camera. Sorry, I am distracted today because I saw some of these videos, and I saw also how one guy did a video and he was so upset about it, and it brought back deep-seated emotions, memories. So (37.1), so I am being scanned, elevated, temperature 37.8. So a few minutes ago, it was perfect, 36.5, 37.1, 36.9. The forehead, 36.9. The ear, 36.7. So this is internal temperature, 36.6. I do not have a fever. 37.5. 36.9. 36.8. 37.4. 37.4. 37.3. 37.2. 36.5. 37.2. So the right side, 0.7 degrees higher. So according to the harassing comments outside my window, I'm chipped. Keep in mind, I'm not saying I'm chipped. I am repeating the comments, 37. So I'm repeating the comments outside my window. 36.9. So I do have a headache because my head is being pulsed, which these numbers are showing. The up and down temperature is because I'm being pulsed, 36.7. 37.8 is a fever. 36.6, no fever. 36.7, no fever. 36.8, no fever. On and off. So I'm not sure why the detector died last night. I had it under my back. Either the pressure, it wouldn't have killed the sensor, the display maybe, I'm not sure. The numbers are accurate, but maybe it did something to the display. And the numbers are fine. It's working fine. There. So maybe if I take the lights off at another time. But I'm curious to compare these numbers to a different make and model that I'm going to get from a professional. And I'm going to get these numbers from a professional detector, because it is going to court if I don't die first. If I don't get a heart attack first from these signals, it will be in court. Because right now I am cramping up because I am being hit. Yeah. So talk to you another time.